Our Media Madness segment tonight, Netflix cancels their smash hit series House of Cards. That's the headlines. That's what was trending on Twitter. Only a subnote in all of this news mentioned the fact that the star of House of Cards, Kevin Spacey, allegedly attempted to rape a 14-year-old boy several years ago. That's right, it looks like Harvey Weinstein was only the tip of the iceberg in Hollywood after Star Trek actor Anthony Rapp accused Kevin Spacey of making unwanted sexual advances when Rapp was only 14 years old. In response to this, Spacey tweeted saying he didn't remember the incident, but if it did happen, he apologized and blamed his behavior on being drunk. And then he came out as gay. With me now, staff writer for The Federalist, Bree Payton. Bree, thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, I want to show this tweet from Kevin Spacey on the screen. He tweeted his quote-unquote apology here. He said he didn't remember the incident. He was drunk at the time, and it was unfortunate if it did happen. And then at the end, he said he'd been living in secret. He was private about his personal life, but now he lives as a gay man. Bree, this tweet, this apology was troubling to me from start to finish, not only in and of itself within the circle of this particular situation, but because the left has created such an environment that Kevin Spacey would think that he could metaphorically hide behind the rainbow like this, that his status as a gay man would protect him from being accountable for sexually abusing a minor.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely came across that way, right? Like at the end, he was like, oh, I don't remember this happening. I was drunk. Sorry if he remembered this as a weird thing that happened and was troubled by it years later. P.S. I'm gay. I mean, that definitely seems that he is not just victim blaming, not just making excuses, but also trying to expect that we're just going to ignore the fact that he allegedly tried to rape a 14-year-old boy because of the fact that he was gay. And also, you know, I think it's interesting, you know, so often a lot of people are rightly very offended at the conflation of child molesters and people who are attracted to those of the same sex. And I think in this instance, Kevin Spacey is conflating those two things. And I think that the gay community should be calling him out for doing that. I mean, it's ridiculous to say that, you know, those two things are the same thing. And here he is doing it himself while he is outing himself. I mean, the whole thing from start to finish is totally absurd.
Right. And I think to the credit of some LGBT activist groups, they have actually said, listen, don't try to make those two things act like they're correlated in any way, because they're not correlated. Drunken behavior or the fact that you're a gay man does not in any way release you from the accountability of trying to rape a 14-year-old child. It's absolutely horrible here. So that's the first part of it. That's the first part of it, trying to hide behind the rainbow. The second part of it is Hollywood has not learned their lesson, Bree. This just happened. I mean, less than a month ago, we were talking about Harvey Weinstein. Now it seems that this predatory behavior coming from Kevin Spacey was another open secret. People knew about this. This is a tweet I want to show on the screen from Rosie O'Donnell. She said, "You don't remember the incident 30 years ago? You, Kevin, like Harvey, we all knew about you. I hope more men come forward." I mean, people knew.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And, you know, I think that men who have built their careers hiding acts like this and who have built their careers sexually exploiting other people, I think that they should lose everything. I think it's great that Netflix decided to cancel the show and isn't continuing on this project. And I hope that, you know, he never gets work again if these allegations are true and if he is a predator, like a lot of people are saying. And I think the same thing is true of Harvey Weinstein also. And I think his company is going to continue to suffer because, as you said, everyone around him just enabled his behavior and winked at it and said that, you know, oh, whatever, it's just Harvey, we'll ignore it. And that's completely wrong and awful, and it needs to definitely be called out, and there needs to be very tough consequences for people who decide to prey upon other individuals because of their position of power.
Right, and I don't understand how someone can sit in their industry, sit in Hollywood and know these things and not speak up in some way. If this was an open secret, I mean, if Rosie O'Donnell knew about this, why didn't she tell someone? These children, these are children that we're talking about. A 14-year-old boy was in danger here. If she saw this, if she knew that this had happened, she should have said something. And there's another thing. I want to show this. Is a very short video. It's from Family Guy, back from, I think, 2005, and it references Kevin Spacey's predatory behavior. They knew too, and they did nothing. Look at this.
Help! I've escaped from Kevin Spacey's basement!
Again, they knew, and they did nothing. They made a joke about it. I mean, there were actual children that, I mean, he tried to pin this child down on the bed, and the only reason the kid got away was because Kevin Spacey was so drunk, and Family Guy makes a joke about it.
Yeah, I know. You're completely right. I mean, it's ridiculous. I think the fact that there are so many people that supposedly knew about it and were even comfortable joking about it in a TV show in that capacity, I think shows you that sexually exploiting other people and taking advantage of other people is just baked into the cake when it comes to Hollywood. And it seems very apparent that the entire entertainment industry is built around the idea that, hey, if you get high enough on the totem pole, you can just do whatever you want. And I think right now we are seeing that system to collapse a little bit. And I hope that, you know, that part of the system is gone forever, right? Because we hope that none of these things ever happen to anyone else. And I think it's important for the victims of, you know, these kind of actions to continue to keep coming out, to continue speaking out, because I think it's very clear that with this and with Harvey Weinstein and a lot of the other numerous allegations that have happened, and news just broke about what's going on at NPR and the New Republic over today. You know, I think it's very clear that the tide is turning against men specifically who, you know, use their positions of power in order to exploit and squeeze out sexual favors or just get away with horrible behavior towards their coworkers and to other people around them.
Right. And I understand the difficulty in speaking up about sexual harassment or sexual abuse all the way up to assault and rape here, because we have the crime itself, then we have the complicity, which we just talked about, those two elements, the crime by Kevin Spacey, the complicity by Hollywood, other people in the industry who knew about it and said nothing, and then we have the cover-up, and the cover-up is done by the mainstream media. I mean, the headlines, and I do want to show this really quickly on the screen, the headlines coming from some of the mainstream media news outlets here after this broke announced that Kevin Spacey was gay. They didn't talk about the allegations of child abuse, of sexual molestation, or anything of that nature. They just announced that he was gay. That's covering up a crime. How are people supposed to hear about these allegations if the mainstream media hides them?
Yeah, you're completely right, and it's totally ridiculous, and we need to continue calling it out. And, you know, someone who is a sexual predator, there's never just one victim that comes out, right? There's always multiple victims, and so that's why I think it's so important for victims to speak out, because it's not just their own reputation, it's not just what happened to them specifically, it's stopping that person to prevent the same thing from happening to other individuals. And it's important also, if you know something about someone, to make it public and make it known and call that person out to stop them, right? I mean, this is so awful, and it's so systemic, and it is just so widespread. And as I said earlier, you know, it really just seems to be baked into the cake of this whole equation, which is really, I think, the most alarming part of this whole thing.
And the longer we don't call out the names of these people, the longer that they have the opportunity to prey on more victims.